Imagine sitting in total silence and suddenly hearing your own voice on the radio. But it's not coming from the next room. It's broadcasting from the surface of the moon, and it's reciting your dying words, 10 years before you ever put on a spacesuit. This is what killed the Soviet lunar program. Not the N-1 rocket explosions, not the budget deficits, but 14 seconds of Type 6 magnetic tape. January the 2nd, 1959. The Luna 1 station was supposed to be a dead piece of metal drifting in solar orbit. Instead, at 11:40 p.m. Moscow time, it activated a reserve communication channel. Operators in Crimea intercepted a signal that made their blood run cold. Breaking through the white noise was the voice of a Russian pilot. He was dictating oxygen tank pressure and an equipment serial number, spacesuit Kreshet 94. It was impossible. In 1959, that spacesuit didn't even exist on blueprints, but the voice was real. The KGB spent a decade sifting through millions of personnel files to find a biometric match. And when they found him in 1968, the puzzle clicked into place. It was Oleg Morozov, a young engineer who had just been drafted into the cosmonaut corps. He had no idea his fate was already recorded on a reel in Andropov's safe. April 1969. The secret launch of Object 5L from Baikonur. Inside the capsule, there are two men. Flight engineer Morozov believes this is a scientific breakthrough. He checks sensors, jokes, breathes deeply. But beside him, in the commander's seat, sits Colonel Viktor Korshunov, and he is silent. Korshunov knows the truth. He is not an explorer. He is an executioner. His mission is to deliver Morozov to the coordinates dictated by the dead man from 59, to lead the lamb to the slaughter and close the temporal paradox. The rocket lifts off the pad. They think they are flying into space. But in reality, they are flying into the past, to become the echo they themselves heard. Space inside this tin can didn't smell like stars. It smelled like burnt wiring and cold sweat. Day 3 of the flight. The Soyuz 7KL-3 hung in the void like a speck of dust in a spotlight beam. Inside, there was a silence broken only by the hum of the fans. This monotonous sound drilled into the brain, vibrated in the teeth, drove one mad. Oleg Morozov floated in zero gravity, trying to focus on the instruments. Oxygen, normal. Pressure, normal. Radiation, normal. Everything was normal, but his instincts were screaming the opposite. His body sensed danger like an animal before an earthquake. In the commander's seat, motionless as a statue, sat Colonel Korshunov. He hadn't slept in 72 hours. He just stared out the viewport at the gray disk of the moon and turned an old Type 6 audio cassette over in his hands. Viktor Sergeyevich. Morozov's voice sounded alien, hoarse. 4 hours to orbit. The Argonne computer's throwing a correction error. We are flying blind. Korshunov didn't even blink. We are not flying blind, Oleg. We are flying on rails. A train cannot turn. What the hell kind of rails? Morozov's nerves snapped. Mission control is silent. Navigation is dead. And you're sitting there with that cassette like a statue. Instead of answering, Korshunov only gripped the plastic cassette tighter. Morozov turned away. He needed to calm down. He pulled out his voice recorder. It felt like if he could capture reality with his voice, it would stop blurring. Flight time 14 Itaú, he whispered into the microphone. Log entry number 4. Condition stable. But my head is splitting. I hear a low-frequency hum that isn't on the instruments, like the hull is vibrating. He paused. The moon looks strange. It's darker, and the shadows in the craters, they seem too deep, like holes in space. At that moment, he let go of his pencil. In zero gravity, the object should have drifted away smoothly. But the pencil froze. It hung 10 centimeters from Morozov's face, absolutely motionless, as if glued to the void. "Victor," Oleg exhaled. "Look." And then reality flickered. The pencil began to change, its outlines blurred like melting film. The yellow paint flaked off into digital noise. A second later, the object became transparent, emitted a sharp sound, zing, and vanished, annihilated. Morozov recoiled, hitting the panel. "What was that? Did you see? That's not physics. It's a hallucination. We need to turn around." He lunged for the control console. "Stop." Korshunov's voice was quiet, but heavy as a tombstone. The colonel raised his TP-82 pistol. 3 barrels pointed at the engineer's chest. "Don't touch the stick, Oleg. You cannot turn around a bullet that has already left the barrel. You're going to kill me. Over a pencil?" Morozov raised his hands, shaking. "No. I want you to listen." Korshunov inserted the cassette into the player. This recording was found in 1959, in a crater. Listen. Click, hiss, and a voice. A voice Morozov knew better than anyone else's. His own voice, but broken, soaked in primal terror. "Log entry number 4, the speaker rasped. "Head is splitting. I hear a hum. The moon looks strange. Shadows like holes in space." Morozov turned pale blue. "No. You recorded me just now. It's a trick." The speaker continued. "The pencil. God, it's gone. It just dissolved. Victor, put the gun away. Victor, don't. We have to turn around." The silence in the cabin became a vacuum. Morozov stared at the gun in the commander's hand. At the cassette. "How?" he whispered. "How did you know about the gun?" Korshunov lowered the weapon. In his eyes was a deadly fatigue. "Because we've been here before, Oleg. Last time and 100 times before that. This cassette isn't a prophecy. It's a protocol. We are in a loop. We are a broken record that the moon plays over and over again. That's insane. We're alive. It's 1969. Look out the window." Morozov turned his head. The moon was enormous. But it wasn't the same moon. The craters were moving. They slowly rotated, flowing into one another like oil. A giant spiral was twisting beneath them. And in the center of that spiral, in a black dot, something was glinting. "What is that?" Morozov asked. "That is the junkyard," Korshunov answered. "The graveyard of our attempts, and our landing site." The ship shuddered. Gravity seized them in a death grip. The rails ended. The fall began. The fall didn't feel like a landing. It felt like a giant hand had grabbed their tiny ship and smashed it against a concrete wall with all its might. The gravity compensators whined and burned out in the first second. G-force slammed into Morozov's chest, knocking the air from his lungs. The world narrowed to a red dot. An inhuman screech filled his ears, the hull of the Soyuz screaming as it resisted pressure that shouldn't exist. The moon wasn't pulling them with 1/6 of Earth's gravity. It was pulling them with the fury of a black hole. "Brace," Korshunov's voice tore through the roar. "Retro rockets. Failure. Backup circuit. Failure. We are going in hard." A gray surface flashed in the viewport, but it wasn't regolith. Morozov managed to glimpse a strange shimmer, millions of glints as if they were falling onto a field of broken glass. Impact. Darkness. Oleg woke to a sound. Drip, drip, drip. Emergency lighting flooded the cabin in thick blood-red light. The instrument panel was dead. The viewport glass was covered in a web of cracks. The cabin smelled of ozone and copper. Morozov turned his head. "Korshunov, A trickle of blood running down his temple was already checking the seal of his Crèche spacesuit. In the red light, his face looked like a demon's mask. "Get up, engineer," the colonel rasped. "The hull is breached. Pressure is dropping. We have 5 minutes to get out." "Out?" Panic seized Oleg. "Out where? It's a vacuum out there. We have to wait for rescue." Korshunov grabbed him roughly by the shoulder. "There is no rescue. No one is coming. Put on your helmet. Move." Oleg obeyed. The click of locks, the hiss of oxygen. Opening the hatch, Korshunov's voice in the headset was dry. "Get ready. What you are about to see, try not to lose your mind." The hatch fell away with a crash. They stepped out. Morozov switched on his helmet light, and the beam cut through the darkness. They were not standing in a crater. They were standing in the middle of an ocean of dead ships. As far as the eye could see, a graveyard of technology stretched to the horizon. They were Soviet LK lunar modules, thousands, tens of thousands. They lay atop one another, forming mountains of twisted metal. Some were new, others had turned into rusted dust. It was an infinite fractal junkyard of the same machine. Their machine. God, Morozov fell to his knees. His glove touched the ground, but it wasn't soil. He was sitting on a layer of pulverized debris. Nuts, bolts, shards of glass. The lunar dust here wasn't made of rock. It was made of them. "Stand up," Korshunov barked. "Don't look around." "It's us," Morozov muttered, staring at a nearby wreck with the number LK703, and at the next one with the same number. "Victor, this is all. Our ship." "Move," Korshunov shoved him. They walked through this metallic hell. 100 meters later, they found a body. A Crèche suit, old, turned gray. The visor was smashed. Inside was a skull stretched with parchment-like skin. On the patch, "O. Morozov." Oleg vomited. Bile hit the inside of his helmet. He started choking, clawing at the glass. "Calm down," Korshunov commanded. "Engage scrubbers. That's not you. That's garbage. A shell. That is me. I'm lying there. You are alive as long as you are walking. Move." Ahead, amidst the rust, one module stood out. Its running lights were on. "Active," Korshunov whispered, drawing his pistol. They approached. The hatch was closed. Korshunov knocked with the grip of his gun. "Anyone alive?" A grinding sound. The hatch opened. Inside sat a man. His suit was covered in formulas, scratched directly into the plastic. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. The man raised his head. Mad, faded eyes, a gray beard. It was Oleg Morozov, but 20 years older. "You came." The double's voice rustled over the comms. "Fresh meat." "Who are you?" the real Morozov asked. "I am iteration 604, or 605. I lost count when I ran out of pencils. I started writing with my finger." He showed a glove worn down to the bone. "Why are you alive?" Korshunov asked, leveling his barrel. "I hid. I didn't go to the beacon. I waited for the reset. But it never comes. The moon just stacks us up, layer by layer." Korshunov pushed him aside. "We will break the cycle." He pulled out a tactical nuclear charge. Device T. "I'm blowing up the beacon. The loop will break." Old Morozov laughed, coughing. "Blow it up. Try it, soldier. Iteration 500 already tried." Korshunov activated the timer. 30 seconds. Let's go." He threw the charge into the module and dragged Oleg back. "Get down." Morozov squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the end. 3, 2, 1. Silence. Morozov opened his eyes. There was no explosion. Above the module where the bomb lay, a flower bloomed. A giant, translucent, digital flower. The charge didn't explode. It glitched. The matter of the bomb dissolved into pixels and formulas, scattering into the vacuum like smoke. Reality simply deleted the error. The old man peered out of the hatch. "See?" he hissed. "Physics here only works the way the master allows. Fire doesn't burn here." Korshunov lowered his gun. For the first time, he looked lost. "Force won't work," he whispered. "Only the signal remains." He pulled Morozov to his feet. "We're going to the beacon, Oleg. They are waiting for us." They trudged on, leaving the laughing old man behind, deeper into the junkyard, where the black spire of the antenna pierced the dead sky. They walked to the beacon for an eternity, or maybe just an hour. Time frames in the junkyard meant nothing. There was no past, no future here, only an endless, frozen now filled with rust. The black spire of the antenna grew as they approached. It wasn't an alien construct. It was the Soviet station, Luna 1, launched in 1959. The only object in this entire reality that wasn't duplicated. It stood atop a hill of wreckage, clean, untouched, shining with polished aluminum as if it had been placed there yesterday. "Why is it alone?" Morozov wheezed. His oxygen was running low. The sensor blinked an alarming orange. "Why are there thousands of ships, but only one station?" "Because it is the constant," Korshunov answered. The colonel walked heavily, dragging one leg. His suit was breached in several places. The sealant was barely holding. "This is the needle upon which all our lives are threaded. The entry point and the exit point." They crested the hill. The station stood before them. Its antennas were deployed toward Earth. Earth hung in the sky, a huge blue sphere, so beautiful and so unreachable. Korshunov approached the station's service hatch and opened it with a universal key. Inside the cramped instrument compartment, lights flickered. Analog equipment from the 50s hummed, alive and warm. "Transmitter is operational," Korshunov said, checking the voltmeters. "Frequency is locked. There's enough power to punch through the static all the way to Crimea." He turned to Oleg and handed him a headset microphone. The wire trailed from the bowels of the station like an umbilical cord. "Sit down, Oleg." Morozov recoiled. "No, I won't. I know what I have to say. I heard the recording." "You must." Korshunov's voice was soft but unyielding. "If you don't send the message, the KGB won't intercept it in 59. They won't start the search. They won't find you. They won't send us here. And then we won't die," Morozov screamed. "The loop will break." "No, Oleg. If you don't send the signal, we simply vanish. We never existed. But the loop remains. Others will come. Armstrong, Leonov, anyone. This machine will grind people forever until someone closes the contact. We have to shut the door behind us." Morozov looked at the headset. His hands were shaking. "What do I have to say?" Korshunov pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. The same paper with the text they had heard on the tape. "Dictate, word for word. Don't change a sound. It's the password for the universe." Morozov took the microphone. He sat on the metal floor, right in the lunar dust. Static hissed in his headphones, the breath of the cosmos. "Engaging transmission," Korshunov said, and flipped a toggle switch. The power indicator needle jumped into the red zone. Morozov drew a breath of the stale air in his suit. Flight 703. His voice trembled. "Pressure in the loop is 0. Landing stage failure." He spoke, and with every word, he felt reality around them becoming denser, as if the world had been waiting for these exact words to make sense. "I see hull breach," he continued, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Spacesuit, Kresh 94. Serial number. He stumbled. He looked at his arm. There was no number on the suit's cuff. It was worn off. Number, he whispered in panic. Victor, I don't see the number. Read from the sheet, Korshunov barked. Just read. Morozov squeezed his eyes shut. Serial number KR703. I repeat, KR703. Silence. Only the hum of the ether. I see them. He whispered the final phrase, one that wasn't on the paper, but was tearing its way out of his soul. God, I see hundreds of them. Click. Korshunov killed the transmitter. That's it, the colonel exhaled. He slid down the wall of the module and sat next to him. We did it. The signal is gone. In 1.3 seconds, it will reach Earth. But for them, it will be 1959. Morozov sat with his head bowed. So what now? Are we dead? No. Korshunov closed his eyes. Now we have become part of history. We are the foundation. Suddenly, the sky above them began to change. The blue sphere of Earth shuddered. Its colors began to fade. The bright azure of the oceans turned gray. White clouds turned into a dirty yellow fog. Earth was aging before their eyes. It was drying up. A second later, it wasn't a blue marble hanging in the sky, but a dead, gray stone. No oceans, no atmosphere, no life. Victor, Morozov whispered, what happened to Earth? Korshunov opened his eyes and looked up. He smiled a sad, tired smile. Don't you get it, Oleg? The signal didn't go to 1959. It went from the future. We aren't in the past. We are at the end of time. We broadcast this scream across millions of years so that those living in 59 wouldn't make the mistake, so they wouldn't come here. But they sent us, Morozov whispered. Yes, we are the price of salvation. We are the cork in the genie's bottle. The air in the tanks ran out. The last breath came easily. The camera slowly pulls back from the two figures sitting at the foot of the silver needle. They become smaller, merging with thousands of other identical wrecks. Dead Earth hangs in the sky, and on the screen, a modern image from the LRO satellite appears. At maximum zoom, amidst the chaos of craters, one can make out an inscription laid out by bodies in white spacesuits. One word in Russian. Spasibo. Thank you. The screen goes black. The signal from Luna 1 reached Crimea 1.3 seconds after Morozov pressed the button. But for the operators in the bunker, that signal was a death sentence. Spectral analysis confirmed. The voice on the tape and the voice in the ether were a 100% match. The loop had closed. That night, an unprecedented decision was made in the Kremlin. The N1 project wasn't cancelled due to technical failures. Two fully completed rockets, standing in the assembly building, were cut into scrap metal with blowtorches. Thousands of volumes of technical documentation were burned in the courtyard of the Yuzhnoye Design Bureau. This wasn't an admission of defeat. It was the creation of a quarantine zone. The USSR realized the moon is not territory for expansion. It is a temporal minefield. The Americans learned the truth a month later. The crew of Apollo 10, flying over the far side of the moon, reported strange space music on the radio. NASA classified these recordings for 40 years, but we know the truth. It wasn't music. It was the echo of digital screeching from the junkyard, punching through the vacuum. That is why the moon race ended so abruptly in 1972. Neither the USSR nor the USA wanted to risk it anymore. An unspoken pact was signed. We look, but we don't touch. Oleg Morozov and Viktor Korshunov were erased from history. Their personnel files were destroyed, photos retouched, families relocated to closed cities under new names. To the world, they were never born. But truth has a way of leaking out. Today, half a century later, we are looking at the moon again. Chinese rovers crawl on the far side. The Artemis program is training new astronauts. We have forgotten the fear. We have forgotten the warning. Look at the LRO satellite images one more time. NASA claims the strange white spots in the Tsiolkovsky crater are digital noise or tricks of light. But if you increase the contrast, if you remove the filters, you will see them. Thousands of white dots arranged in perfect order. These aren't pixels. This is a graveyard of heroes who sacrificed themselves at the end of time so that we could have a present. They wrote thank you, and perhaps we should answer them in kind by leaving them alone.